Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 124 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this first quarter moon episode, we discuss transformation and female empowerment. We speak with Geeta Sidhu-Robb, who is a coach, speaker, and business mentor. I also review the book Choose to Win: Transform Your Life One Simple Choice at a Time by Tom Ziglar. The episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for female empowerment. But first, let me share with you my own story of struggle and transformation. When you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. If you're going through a hard time right now, I hope this episode inspires you to have hope for the future and to know that things will get better. Our guest today has one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard. She was in a very difficult situation and she overcame it with flying colors. I'm not going to reveal any spoilers, but keep listening if you want to be inspired and have hope for your future, especially if you are going through something difficult right now. I once made a speech for Toastmasters called Pain is the Greatest Teacher. I do believe that, actually. Well, it's nice to kind of grow with ease and grace, of course, but sometimes when we're in very difficult situations, the only way is up. And if I look back on my own life at the most challenging things that I've been through, they've been catalysts for change. Changes that I might not have made had I been in the comfort zone. That's why I think it's so important to listen to these whispers from the universe when things are not quite right in your life and make the changes before things get dramatic. That sounds a bit dramatic in itself, but let me just share with you a couple of times in my life that have been incredibly difficult and challenging, but also wonderful. When I was I'm about 22 or something, I lived in Madrid and I really hated it. It was the first time in my life where I was responsible for my decisions. Before then, I was blaming, my family or my upbringing, just for all of the challenges that I had. But then, as a graduate, making the decision to go and live in Madrid and be an English teacher, which was not my passion, I suddenly felt very frustrated with my life, and I didn't really know who to take it out on. My boyfriend, Madrid, everything was Madrid's fault. But I knew deep down that I was responsible for the things that I was experiencing, this dissatisfaction with my life, and only I could change it. One day I plucked up the courage, which took a lot of courage, I must say, to take a night train to Barcelona. And whenever I came to Barcelona, which I'd visited several times during my kind of Madrid malaise, I always felt this rush of vitality. It was like all of my Madrid problems didn't exist. I was in a new reality. And even the relationship I was in just seemed insignificant, even though it wasn't at all insignificant. It was a very significant relationship. But when I was in Barcelona, I just thought, I could live without him. I could start a new life. But then I'd go back to Madrid and get back into that small, limited mindset. And I didn't really have the tools of personal development like I do now. But over time, what was very instructive for me was that after over a year of being in Madrid, I came across one of my old diaries, and when I was cleaning up my bedroom one day, and I opened it up and started reading things about my hopes and dreams when I first arrived in Spain. And then I realized I was reading some of my, let's say, complaints about the relationship I was in. And I realized that those complaints had lasted for a year. I mean, a year is a long time when you're 22. It's a big chunk of your life. But then what was really interesting about that is that I'd forgotten, or I didn't realize how much or how long I had been complaining about the same thing. And the thing I'd complained about wasn't really getting any better. That's why I think that practices like journaling can be very instructive and insightful, especially to track your emotions and feelings about certain things in your life, because you can't just go through life with the same complaints and not take action. This was really the push for me to actually make the decision to leave my apartment, leave my job, leave my friends, leave my boyfriend, and take a night train with just 400 euros into the unknown of Barcelona. It was very strange when I woke up. It was a night train. So when I woke up at 7 a.m, my first thoughts were, who's going to hug me? Who's going to hug me now? And then when I stepped out of the cabin, this kind of sleeper train of 4 beds, I opened the door, and then I saw a beach in Tarragona, just an hour from Barcelona, and I saw palm trees, and I thought, I'll be okay. I think I'll be okay living in a place by the sea. And then I arrived at 7 a.m. in Sants Estación in Barcelona, and I took a taxi to a hotel or a hostel in the Ramblers, which is the only place I knew. I don't know why I even took a taxi. I had no idea that I had no money at that time. And when I got to the hotel, I was there for about 4 days or something, but I was just in this bubble of euphoria. I was like, finally, I've done it. I was so impressed with myself for taking the plunge and making this decision that had been on my wish list for such a long time. It was so empowering. I was doing the worst job of my entire life, which actually helped me to get to Barcelona. I applied for a job of door-to-door sales, fiber optic internet connections. I could barely speak Spanish, but it was a way to kind of get into Barcelona because they were taking on 30 people and they were just going to start firing the people who weren't performing over time. And I was one of those people, unfortunately. So after 5 weeks, I actually lost my job. And in the interim, I was staying at one of my former students' houses in Barcelona because I was an English teacher in Madrid, and one of my students was living between Barcelona and Madrid, and he'd said to me, you can stay in my apartment. And at first I thought it was a kind of, let's say an altruistic offer. But then I was very naive and I didn't realize that he wanted me to pay with my flesh. And I was in a very, very uncomfortable situation. Nothing really happened in the end, but I didn't feel comfortable. And fortunately, a friend lent me some money so I could leave that situation and then move into an apartment. And when I was getting this apartment, I lied to my future flatmates, telling them I had a job, which I didn't have a job. Even my family came to visit me, and they saw I was in a suit. I was dressed in a suit. I was going left, right, and center to job interviews, and I just thought, oh, look, you're doing so well for yourself. And I was like, if you only knew. But I was actually eating once a day gazpacho and fries. I thought that was the cheapest way I can eat and get nutrients. I wasn't vegan at the time, but it was vegan, so that's kind of cool. But I wasn't able to have gazpacho for years and years in the end. But what's going back to those times when, this resilience kicks in, and also kindness of people who help you out as well. I mean, some people were very, very kind to me when I was going for job interviews, and I explained my situation of, not having anything, losing my job, leaving everything to come to Barcelona. And sometimes people would say to me, can I get you some food? I mean, I experienced so much kindness, and I never felt alone. And I really experienced the generosity that humans can have towards others. Another moment that over the next few weeks, I kind of sorted myself out and managed to pay people back, etc. But it took me several months to actually get on my feet. Another time in my life which was very influential through pain is actually in 2009 when I started my sex blog. And it all started because I was working in real estate, luxury real estate, and all of my clients, they were looking for investment properties and paying with cash. So no mortgages, no kind of family homes. It was all just a capricho, like a fun pied-à-terre in Barcelona. And it was amazing. And I met some incredible people through my job, but it was a real contrast to be, in this abundance and affluence during the day and then coming home to an empty fridge and even rats. I had a rat infestation in August in Barcelona, which is the hottest time of the year. So it was hell. And every time I heard some kind of scratching, I was, oh my God, I was so paranoid. So that was a very tough situation for me, but I wouldn't change a thing looking back, because that was the push I needed to say, you know what, I'm going to become a sex blogger, because that was a wild dream of mine. I mean, now it feels like the most natural thing in the world to me. However, I did think about, what are people going to think of me? People are going to, reject me, judge me. It's going to really negatively impact my relationships. There is a very dark side of being online and speaking about sex. It's not just about orgasms at all. But I thought, I got to the point where that seemed like the best option for me, because even in spite of the problems, it's also actually a lot of fun. And also it just feels like it's my purpose. And so I overcame the fear and just thought, you know what? Whatever I do is not going to be good enough for certain people, so I may as well do what I want to do. So that's what I did. And I do find that when you are on the right path, things just start working out for you. And within 5 weeks of starting on my blog, I had my very first book deal, which was just a massive dream and a massive confirmation from the universe that I was on the right path and being blessed and guided. And so that's been a very, very instructive time in my life as well. And I've also talked to you about another time in my life which was very hard, which was 2018, 9 years after deciding to be a sex blogger, and then going through another period of time where it was, I was, struggling financially and professionally, and really asking myself these questions. Do I deserve this life that I've created for myself? And that's when I started to look into the world of self-help. And I discovered Think and Grow Rich, which is the book that's changed my life. I've mentioned it many times on here. And that's when I discovered the practice of orgasmic manifestation, which is the title of my book. And that has really brought me into comfort for the first time in my life. I've never really experienced the levels of comfort that I have experienced and indulged in ever since I discovered that in 2018. So that's why I'm so passionate about Think and Grow Rich, and also about orgasmic manifestation, the O method, also known as the O method. But I am a bit wary about who I speak to, how I speak about these topics, because I'm always afraid of being judged, or maybe I am judging others. I'm kind of projecting a judgment. But what I want to say with this is that some of the most important things I've done in my life have come from moments of absolute struggle and absolute desperation. But there's been something inside me that's guided me to blessings and comfort and another way, another direction in life. Because I do say rejection is redirection. And sometimes when you get those no's of jobs or whatever, there's something better coming. I've been in that situation many times before I was self-employed, where I got to, the round 3 of interviews, and you think, I'm almost there. It's just me against this other candidate, nearly there. And then they say no, and you're thinking, no. But then a couple of months later, you get something much better. The same thing can happen in relationships. You break up with someone, or they break up with you, and you're absolutely gutted. You do your healing, and then someone much better comes along, and you're thinking, oh, I'm so glad that person broke up with me. So I do think we can alchemize these moments of absolute struggle and turn them into our moments of power. And I hope that's what you take away from this episode today. So I'm going to leave it there, because now we're going to hear Geeta's story, which is really, really mind-blowing, highly inspirational, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. What if your pleasure was the portal to your power? My new book, Orgasmic Manifestation, Transform Your Life with Your Sexual Energy by Venus O'Hara, is your guide to using desire as a tool for abundance, purpose, and deep self-connection. Your orgasm is more than a moment. It's a message, a manifestation, a mirror of your limitless potential. Available now on Amazon. Link in the show notes below. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Geeta Sidhu-Robb, who is a coach, speaker, and business mentor. Geeta Sidhu-Robb, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
I do a lot of things actually. I'm an entrepreneur,
Uh-huh.
an ex-lawyer turned entrepreneur. I am a mother of three. I've been a single parent since my first child in my early 20s, and I'm a kind of a and I'm a coach. I coach. I'm a business kind of strategist coach. So I coach primarily women, but high achievers. So people that are very successful sometimes, or successful, but don't feel happy about their lives. Kind of are, is this it? Is this why am I here? And who am I? And kind of I help them to grow the mindset. Um, and yeah, I think that'll do.
Would that be kind of trying to bring more balance to people's lives who are already quite professionally successful? Would that be?
No, no, because I did most people I think that are quite successful don't have a work-life balance and are quite happy about it because they kind of love what they do.
Mm,
And so I'm never somebody who says, I think you should get work-life balance. I don't honestly care about that. I really care that you don't self-sabotage yourself personally,
mm,
uh, bec because you're very successful professionally. And I tend to find that when the more successful women become, the more isolated they tend to become because it gets lonelier the kind of higher up you go. But there's a big difference between their professional self-confidence and their personal self-esteem.
mm.
And that's what I specialize in. Women that can be professionally very confident and personally have quite low self-esteem and don't quite know how to get there, why they got there and what to do about it.
That's a really interesting comment, or just difference, I guess. So, what
Yeah.
inspired you to follow this path?
I ended up, I'm like a very like I'm a lawyer. I've spent a lot of time training as a lawyer and all this stuff. And I walked out on my last marriage, who is the father of two of my children. And I had a child before that. And it was we had built a huge business. We were very wealthy. And the further on we became, he drank more and became more violent. And we walked out of this marriage, my children and I, when my son said to me one day, I don't think we're safe and I think we should leave before he hurts us. And I was like, and he was 5 foot, no, 6'5", and we're not. And so it was really quite dangerous. And so when I walked out, my mother was very unhappy about me leaving because culturally, she was like, I don't believe in this, and I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to give you anywhere to sleep or stay or live. And we ended up homeless, basically, with like £14 a day to live off.
What does homeless mean actually? In what was that? What did that mean for you?
That I had no home. I had
Uh-huh.
nowhere to live and I couldn't pay for one. And I couldn't, I had not, I had £200. He emptied all our bank accounts and we had a 8-bedroom house.
Wow.
So, like there was nowhere to go. Like we just literally were standing on the street holding a bunch of nappies and one child under one arm and the other one holding my dress, and my son was holding the nappies and I was holding the nappies, and we were standing on the street and I was looking at the road and thinking, what do I do? Where do we go? I didn't have anywhere to go. So I didn't have anywhere to sleep. I didn't have anywhere to put the children. I didn't have anything that I knew to do at all. And what and I rang somebody, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really," and he had 2 or 3 houses. He had a lot of houses, and he goes, "Oh, I'm a little busy. Let me call you back." And I was like really taken aback by the fact that there was no offer of help. And so I tried 2 or 3 people and got no, no, no. And then because nobody wants to take in a woman with 3 kids, I suppose. And then a girlfriend of mine said, yes, come. Have you got money for a taxi? And I was like, yes. She's like, no, come. She gave me a bedroom to sleep in, to live in, which we did for the next 6 months.
So does the state not provide anything for women in that situation then? Is there nothing?
I have no idea.
Oh wow.
It's not
Oh
really what you think about when you're standing on a street with 3 kids and
yeah.
literally nowhere to go and no money to do it with. You don't think, should I just Google and see if the state has something? It's not at all what you think.
Yeah, wow. I have so how did this is a massive transformation that you've made, and just takes me this comment about everything going really well and then suddenly it all changes. I have a lot of my female friends who are looking for a provider, and I always try and tell them how dangerous that is, to put all your power or hand over your power, earning power, to someone who could potentially take advantage of that, and you could be in a situation where, everything you have it's taken away from you somehow. You know,
He wasn't my provider.
yeah, but even like
Because,
financial stability, I think that's always something
he
to.
wasn't my financial stability. None of those
Well,
things were true for me. So if you go
uh,
onto my Instagram and I talk about this, women are always like, well, it was his money, or
uh,
you're a gold digger, or this. None of those things were true. We had
uh,
together built a business over 7 years,
mm,
and we just had divvied up our responsibilities. I would close the deals and he would invest the money.
uh,
But he never did a single one of those deals without me.
wow,
I brought them in, I did them, my children had share portfolios that I had paid for.
wow,
And yeah, and I mean, you're meant to trust the person that you're in a
yeah,
relationship
absolutely,
and married with and have 2 children with and live with. And it was, the trouble is when we have these conversations about don't rely on men, we somehow are making that the fault of the woman.
yeah,
And when we say, well, what did you think was going to happen? And I'm very happy to stand here and go, none of that should have happened. And if
mm,
it had been a man with halfway level sense of decency, none of that would have happened. But it was a
mm,
very distinct approach that he had, that if he took everything away from me, I would have no choice but to go back to him. And
wow,
that was what it is. Because when you start to get divorced, women hang on to the kids and men hang on to the money as modes of communication. So I don't think that statement, although it sounds intelligent and logical,
mm,
isn't does not have a basis in truth. Because if you can still have, I've made millions,
mm,
millions, and I still found myself by the age of 32, and I found myself standing on the street
wow.
with no money. So it's not always that way.
Yeah, of course, of course. I guess I'm kind of referring to the trend, which is very different from your case. The trend online we see of this, the trad wives and all of this. That people are kind of glamorizing that kind of a life of, and not without realizing, because obviously you're a lot more vulnerable in that situation if you're not the contributing to the house. So,
I guess, and also the thing with the trad wife trend is that when trad wives were a thing, so if you looked at, for example, my mother and my father and many
mm,
people of that generation, although my mother always worked, but it wasn't her money that we ever used to
mm,
live. What the trad wife had a value, and it was a partnership. You go
mm,
outside of the house and work. I stay inside of the house and I work, but we have a partnership. My parents always had joint bank accounts. They always knew what they were doing. They always talked to each other, and sometimes this one prevailed and sometimes that one prevailed. And some of the trad wives I look at, and I think it's really interesting that they are creating lives and making money out of their own social media profiles.
mm,
And I hope that some of it is in a bank account that no one else has access to, which
yeah,
didn't help me because my ex managed to bribe his way through to emptying bank accounts that were even in my name. And that didn't make any difference whatsoever. So if you're with an outrageous person, then that
mm,
even won't protect you. So sometimes I just think, but yeah, absolutely. Like I'm with my children, I'm very careful and very clear about the fact that there has to be money in their own names, in their own bank accounts that only they know exist and only they have access to. It's not always the core of a healthy, trusting relationship, though, is it?
yeah. I know, because I actually interviewed a woman who's she's a divorce lawyer, and she's written a book about love and dating, because she's seen how the end results, and it's kind of tracing back what, when you're not on the same page with core values. And it's super interesting that she's trying to kind of reduce her own client intake by preventing divorce.
Yeah.
Super
And
interesting.
also
Mm,
preventing the trauma, I think, that comes
mm,
from that for you, for the children, and seeing how that works. And but what happened to me happens to millions and millions
yeah.
of women around the world every day. There's
Mm,
nothing unusual in what
yeah.
happened. What makes me unusual is the level of success I've had despite that.
Mm.
So that's the only unusual thing. Otherwise, it's just sod's law, isn't it? It happens again and again and again.
Yeah, it's quite it's quite scary how you can just not know someone until you've been with them for a long time,
Mhm.
and how different circumstances unravel things that you just didn't even.
Utterly petrifying.
Yeah. Wow. So tell us about your transformation. What was how did you start getting on your feet again? And what was your mindset to try and what were you thinking of doing before? What was
My
the first thing?
mindset was we are poor as hell,
Okay.
and that sucks, and we need to eat. And I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how to buy a pair of shoes for £14, because even in those days, shoes didn't cost £14. They cost £40. And we were poor. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, my kids are when they were in private school. So I
Mm.
couldn't eat, I couldn't feed them, I couldn't do anything. And I was like, I had to make a few decisions. And the first decision I made was that this is never, ever going to happen to me again. And I kind of drew a line in the sand, and I was like, I don't know what brought me here, but I'm never doing this again. And then I came to the stage where I had like two pairs of shoes for like I was going to say 7 months, but I think it was the whole year. Two pairs of shoes, two pairs of trousers, and a top or something. Or no, one pair of trousers and two tops. And that's all I had. And then the children had their things, you know. And so it was a very difficult way to even think about going to work, not going to work. I couldn't leave the kids in this bedroom on their own. And so I needed to find help that I couldn't pay for. So you're always in poverty is a very interesting thing. We don't, until you've been poor, you don't understand that if you just worked harder, you'd come out of poverty. It just isn't like that. There is this
Mm.
absolutely soul-sucking part of it where you are stuck being poor. You know how
Mm.
they say rich people always make money?
Mm.
And it's very true. And poor people always suffer because they stay in that poverty because it's such a trap. And I was very lucky that my ex was so appalling. And I remember him saying to me when one of these days the struggle was so bad. And I remember him saying to me, you know, if you just come back, I'll make it all go away.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you so much for being such an asshole, because I'm never coming back after that kind of comment. And so I had a book like this thing, very dog-eared book, and I would small, and that's obviously got coffee stains on the back. And there were completely blank pages. And what I would do every night is I would draw a line down the middle of the page. And I would, on the right-hand side, I would write everything I had to do the next day. And on the left-hand side, I would write everything the universe had to do for me.
Oh,
Because
that's amazing. I love it.
yeah. So I was like, this is what I don't know how to do. I don't know how to move out of this one bedroom. So you need to find me a home. I don't know how to buy the shoes. I don't know how to pay school fees. I don't know how to get a job because he also bankrupted me. And so I couldn't work as a lawyer anymore. So I had no way of making any money out of my own skill sets that I had spent years building and going to school to develop. So I did that every single day. And I would go for 1 hour, 2 hour long walks because I couldn't, you know, when they were sleeping, because I couldn't wind myself down. It was terrible. So I did that every day. Every day I was like, here's what I need to do. Here's what the universe is going to do. And now when the universe pushes me
Mhm.
in certain directions, I laugh because I co-opted the universe then, and it's not going anywhere. It's staying right here to keep pushing me in a direction.
So when you say pushing you, do you mean challenging you, like giving you circumstances that you're trying to navigate that are difficult?
Now, no, because
Uh-huh.
now there was a place where I went through a prayer of, please let me learn my lessons more easily.
Uh,
Just let me learn it easily. If there's an easier way to do something, I'm willing to learn that and do it, because I don't want to do difficult anymore. I hate the drama. I hate the difficulty. Let's just learn it easily. Now, what tends to happen is I kind of feel like the universe has its foot pushed up my ass and it's going this way.
okay.
Okay.
Oh wow. So tell us when does things start working out for you, and what was the first steps of, let's say, being on the path to success?
The first steps was, you know, I went in, there was a guy who dropped his children off at school with my kids, and he had a dry cleaners around the corner from here. And it was a very famous dry cleaners, but it wasn't open. And I was like, what's going on? And he goes, oh my God, I cannot get the council to pay attention, blah, blah, blah. They won't give me a license. And I'm like, do you mind if I have a go? And he went, oh my gosh, please have a go. And I didn't want to say, and will you pay me? But that's what I meant. So
Hmm.
I rang up the council, lovely woman who was like, yeah, absolutely. Got it sorted in about 2 hours. And I went to him and I said, oh, I've got the license for you. And I did not understand how much money dry cleaners made. I promise you, if I had, it would have been a different conversation. And he said, what do you want? And I was like, 200 quid. And he went, are you serious? Don't you want more? And I was like, no, really? That's fine. Because, you know, I didn't know. And he was like, well, he made kafillions out of that dry cleaners. So he gave me 200 quid. And what he did was he sent me his friend. And his friend said, I can't do this. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah. And then I did that. And then he sent me someone else. And it was that funny thing that I didn't understand anything they were asking me to do. And I would be sitting there, like I'm talking to them going, absolutely, while I'm Googling whatever this word means that they want me to do. I just did it for the money. And so then somebody said, can you negotiate telecom spectrum? And I'm just like, sure. And I'm like, telecom spectrum, not a bloody clue, not a bloody clue. And I just Googled it and I was like, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I finagled my way, desperation is a fabulous thing, into a room where there was this conversation. And I wanted, and I'm like, I really need this. I don't know what to help. And people were just fantastic about helping when you ask for help. So then I got another, and then I didn't get any big amounts of money. So we were still
Mhm.
hand to mouth. And then my friend came to see me and he was building, he had two schools in India. And the boys' school they paid for a roof over the school, but the girls' school, nobody was paying for a roof because they didn't care if the girls went to school. And he was so cross about it. And he was just like in this small space going, it's so annoying, Geeta, it's so annoying. And I was like, I'm sure it is. I wish I could give you the money. I've got like £17. And he was like, I don't want your money, but I need £1,000 to build this roof on this school. How dare these girls not get educated? I said, I tell you what, if I get any money, I'll give you 10% towards the roof. And he went, I'll take it. And then we finished and he went off and whatever. And the next morning, Venus, the next morning, I had somebody come in and the contract payment was £10,000.
Wow, amazing. So you got the 10, you got his 1,000.
That not simple. I did not want to give him that money. I was like, I don't want to give you this money. I have this money. This is why it happened because I promised to give it to you. And I'm like, I'm not giving it to you. And he went, Geeta. I'm like, I can't give it to you. It's too much money. I had £14 yesterday and I've got £10,000. I can't give you £1,000. Don't make me. And he's just laughing at me down the phone. I'm like, please don't make me. I actually made a video about it because I was in tears because it
Mhm.
was so much money. How can I
Mhm.
just give you okay, they're doing badly, but hello, I'm doing badly. What about me and my children? I cannot tell you. I was so traumatized. Of course, I gave him the 1,000, but I was so hard. It was so hard. And I have consistently given money away since then, every time I make money. So, yeah.
So first you were discovering your own kind of negotiation skills. Was that the first thing you were working on? The first way you're making money?
I think I was, yeah. I mean, I was always able to persuade people to do things, but I didn't.
Uh,
It makes it very different when it's whether you eat or don't eat, you
mm,
know. And so, and with women, the thing about being pretty young women is there's always a man that's willing to come and pay your bills. There was always somebody willing to pay my bills or marry me or do any of those things. And it was a really conscious, difficult decision to not sell my body first.
oh yeah.
That was
Mm,
the decision that preceded all my decisions. And I talk about this a lot because it's really important. I chose not to do that. And it doesn't matter to me if somebody chooses to do that, but you should make that decision consciously. And I
mm,
consciously was like, no. And I consciously was like, never again am I getting married. Well, not never again, but that's not what I want to do. And I didn't want a man to come and look after me because the statistics of taking your young children into another man's house are very bad, especially
yeah.
young guys, you know. So I was like, well, I'm not doing any of those things. So therefore there has to be an alternative. And when you close doors, the universe helps you find other open doors.
Absolutely, absolutely. I saw something on your Instagram about people pleasing. That's something about with women we kind of we're quite, I don't know, say good at or bad at, but something that we should let go of.
Yeah, and pleasing comes to me when I teach it and when I'm coaching with it, it's three levels. It's people pleasing, cultural pleasing, family pleasing.
Mhm.
And we do end up really intermeshing all three of those things. So we don't know where they start and where they finish. We just know that we're doing what we think we should do. And we think we should, the way in which we should do it, and for the people for whom we should do it, without getting back any gratitude or rewards or anything like that. And so giving up people pleasing was a very, very big step for me. Not being a good girl, not caring what people thought, having to give up what anyone else, because when you're poor and a female, nobody wants you around there. Because I lived in a very wealthy neighborhood, very wealthy friends. None of them wanted me anywhere near their husbands. Like, so
Mm,
because I was going to blow up my brain and walk off with their husbands, you know. And so you're very isolated, and everybody wanted me to disappear and not be in their face.
mm.
And I was like, I'm not gonna. That took a lot of strength to not hide.
Well, definitely. So let's think of the journey. So then you started doing these negotiations for other people. How did it become coaching? What was the next step in your
Well, then
evolution?
I did that for a while. I used
Hmm.
to fly around after a while because it would be bigger and bigger and bigger deals. And every time I did that, I left the kids behind, you know,
Hmm.
and my son was anaphylactic. And he had really bad anaphylaxis. Like he was in hospital and comas, and every time I went away, I would spend my life worrying about the children. And I was like, there must be a way for me to work from home. So I set up a health and wellness business because it's what I need to do because of my son. And I had cured his eczema, cured his asthma, and I'd helped him. And so um, when I started this health and wellness business, so in the UK, we were the first home delivery of gluten, dairy, egg-free food. We were the first company that ever delivered juice fasts. We were the first that ever did cold pressed juices. We were the first that did um, IV drips on the high street. So had all these massive firsts that we were doing. Um, and so we were very well known because we were a business that kept doubling every year. But I had never built a business, so I didn't know that was normal or not normal. And we needed the money. So we were going to grow because I needed the money to pay my bills. And God bless Nosh Detox because it really paid for us and my family to survive. In the process of that, we got a lot of women in the door, and
Mm.
they were very, very famous because there was no other company in the UK, 2007, 2008, that actually did any of this stuff. So one day this woman rang me and said, I'd just like to talk to the owner of the company. And I was like, you know, when you kind of go, that's me, because you're waiting for the headmistress to tell you off. And she was somebody from Vogue. And she said, Gwyneth Paltrow says you're her favorite detox.
Oh, nice.
I was like, she does. And she was like, yeah. I was like, hallelujah. And you know, and she's like, I just need to find out. And so it was amazing because we couldn't afford PR. Obviously, we couldn't get a bank loan. And it was, I mean, it's so like one of my best friends who was growing a business at the same time was white and Cornish, and her business, she got an overdraft of 110 grand in the same revenue stream, same amount of money as me. And I got an overdraft of £10,000 at the same, because brown women, just single parents, are not to be told, here, have an overdraft, we'll want to help. There was, you know, so you had to make money. There was no other way to survive. And so she came in, and then she sent her friend, and they sent her friend. Then this woman turned up one day, who was very perfect. She was exquisite, and everything was perfect. And she wanted to lose weight, and I said, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I'm like, you're far too thin. There's nothing. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. If you've got somebody else who'll deliver to you, be my guest. But we were the only company in town. And she was like, I can't believe you're refusing to serve me. And she was American. And I said, well, because it's the wrong thing for you to do. What you should do is this. And I fought a lot in those early years saying, and then other companies set up and you could buy it from anywhere. But when we were the only game, I was like, you cannot lose more weight. That's not what your problem is. So I said, that's actually quite stupid. And she was like, what? And walked out. When she came back, let's be clear, the office was in my house because I wasn't going to pay for an office, and you had to take off your shoes and you had to cut, you know, it was like this. And so she came back about 3 days later going, can you do that again and I pay you for it? And I was like, for what? She goes, calling me stupid. I was like, obviously she had a sense of humor, but I was like, oh my God, I did not mean to call you stupid. And she's like, yeah, and then I was like, so how much do I charge you? And she was like, oh, I'll give you 250 quid an hour. I was like, well, I'll do it. And this was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And I was just like, oh my God, that is so much. I mean, even now it's so much money. Um, and so I saw her, and then she sent me her friend, and then she sent me her friend, and then she sent me her friend. And we ended up working with two of the Spice Girls, Nadia Swarovski, Gorinda Chadda, who made Bend It Like Beckham, Rachel Stevens from S Club 7, Simon Cowell, just people, the royal family, you know, they just one after another. And it was just, and I was like, oh my God, this is coaching. Apparently it was called coaching. I was like, yay. And then at some stage I thought I should get a coaching qualification. So I did. And that's how I became a coach. And
Wow.
so then I started to make actual serious money.
Mm.
Because until then it would come in and we would spend it growing the business, paying the bills. And coaching gave us the opportunity to really, you know, actually breathe.
Mm. So what was the moment like when you felt that you could breathe, you know, the transition from, let's say, poverty and struggle
Never,
and then to actually feeling relaxed and safe
never.
and
No, never.
yeah.
Just never. Because
Uh,
I mean, I don't think I felt like that till about 3 years ago. You just
oh
never
wow.
did because
Because expenses are higher growing with you or is
expenses grew as well. I
mm,
think the trauma of having hadn't gone through that, and
mm,
I'd worked on my health every single day because I was a single parent, and if I got sick, The children would
Mm.
have to go to either my mother or my ex-husband, and I was like, that's never happening. And so I ended up, but honestly, I don't think, I think that as a mother, what you're doing is you'll push yourself harder, which I
Mm.
did because I wanted more for my kids, but I just never worked through that trauma until very recently. So I never felt safe.
You never had time really, or you never made
No, but
time.
it felt like
Mm.
an indulgence when instead I
Mm.
was trying to do all these things, yeah,
Wow. Oh,
um,
that's such a big journey.
yeah,
Yeah, because I remember there's an interview that I really love with Oprah Winfrey and J.K. Rowling, 'cause, and she asks her, "When did you know you made it?" And she says, "When I didn't have to choose between two things, I could have both."
yeah.
Because poverty just gives you such brilliant lessons. I think people, it's very hard, when you're especially when you're wondering how you're going to eat, and you know,
It's a very, I mean, and it
mm,
really overwhelms your thought processes because you
mm,
don't think about anything else. And the way we understand the way my value system works is the more desperate I feel, the worse my life gets, right?
yeah,
But when you're really poor, the desperation is just undercover everything. It's just your core starting point. So, I mean, I would have to go and make speeches about because I was our PR, right? And that's how I got publicity for the business to grow the business to make more money. And so I did a lot of TV, a lot of radio, a lot of all of this stuff. And people would ring me. I remember ringing a friend of mine who's a really very famous woman. And I was like, oh, have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? And she went, what's up? What's up? I said, I'm going to go make, I was literally in my car parked on a street. And I said, I've got to go and make a speech about being inspiring. And I can't remember how to do it. I can't remember what's inspiring. And I don't feel inspiring. And I don't know what to say. And she was so fun. I mean, a very good friend. So she just laughed at me and said, don't be such a twat. Do it and then come around for dinner afterwards and I'll buy you a drink. Just get up there, and hung up on me. And I thought, well, that's rude. What am I going to do now?
I've been the best inspiration.
Right. And so you never felt, it took me till honestly 2, 3 years ago. I
Mm,
never felt successful. I never felt inspiring. I didn't understand it as a
mm,
concept because how, like, no, I mean, well, I don't know. Like, I've never woken up thinking, wow, I'm so inspiring.
mm,
No, it just isn't how your brain works, right?
You just got on with it all the
Yeah.
time. Hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier when you were in this desperate situation where, friends didn't want you to be around their husbands, so there's lack of support. But also, I've seen it on your Instagram recently when you're at the top, when you saw there's a post about only working with famous people that you lost 80% of friendships overnight. So why do you think that happens? That at the top and at the bottom, the support systems.
That's a very good way of putting it. I've never thought of it. It's true.
Yeah.
Like any extremes that women exhibit, you get punished for them.
Mm,
So that I really like that, Venus. I've never thought of it as being the top and the bottom, but it's very true. Like I remember the first time I did national TV, um, I literally, like, 80% of the people I knew didn't speak to me after that. And it was just I did not expect that at all. And I didn't know what to do about it because you can't ring up people and go, why aren't you my friend anymore? Because that's pathetic. Um, and I think that as women are either desperate or extremely successful, the extremes that we go to, society punishes you for not being within the norm of what it expects of women. And
mm,
so, and it holds it against you, and you pay the price for it. And I was like, the highest price I had to pay was my kids not having food and, a place to live, and so everyone else could go to hell. That was my core priority. And whatever your opinion of me is, I don't care. It's none of my business. You should think what you like of me. Here's what I need to keep my children safe. And so I just did what I was going to do, and I carried on doing it, and never, ever, never cared because what are you going to do for me lately? You know,
mm.
and it stood me in good stead, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's very, very disappointing with people, though, I guess, because when we think we have, people who have our backs. But I think sometimes there are less people when you're doing well, because they say a friend in need is a friend indeed, but unless you kind of want to stay at their house, and that could be that may be where the line is. But then people usually have more empathy than there's in Spanish. There's a great expression. It's called envidia sana, which means healthy envy. So it's envy without
But not
resentment.
jealousy.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful expression. That sometimes I think it's great for you. I wish I had it, but I celebrate you. And but sometimes people want to associate you with, which happened with you as well when you became more successful, and then people are like, oh, I know her, and I know her really well. And there's these people who
We
didn't
used to have a
take you.
joke at, yeah, we used to have a joke at work with Nosh when somebody would ring up and then they'd say, just a moment, and they'd press the button and go, another friend of Geeta's, and the whole office would laugh because my friends would never ring up and ask for a discount. They
Uh,
just wouldn't. It's just not what they would do. So you just knew that the person doing that wasn't a friend. Um, but on the other hand, I should say that the number of people that were kind,
mm,
that helped me, that were, oh, I was doing a speech, a really huge, big speech about 4 weeks ago. And I was terrified. I was literally, one of the who books me regularly for speeches was telling her team, she's like, Geeta's fine till 3 minutes before she goes live. Put her in a corner, give her a glass of water, ignore her, go back when you need her. She'll just fall apart. And I'm like, it's so true. It's so true. And it doesn't matter that this is my job and I've done it for 20 years. It's so true. So there I am, happily falling apart. I was fine till I walked into the room. And then they said, do you want to come sit at the front of the room? And I'm like, oh, no, 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 I'm really good. I mean, like, it was a big, huge deal. I'm like, no, no, I'm really good over here. And I'm sitting on a table and there's a woman standing here and a woman sitting here. And by the time I was called to speak, they were both holding my hand because they were like, you'll be fine. You will be. I mean, I must have looked like I was about to burst into tears. They were like, you'll be completely fine. Don't worry about a thing. And they were holding my hand. And I was like, these are two women I have never met in my life before. And they are doing their level best just to hold me together so I can go, and so I don't think this is a people thing necessarily. I think it was those people thing.
yeah.
Um, and then there are other people that are kind and generous and supportive, men and women, you
Mm,
know.
definitely, definitely. Yes. So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing your clients or women these days?
I think our biggest challenge facing us as women is our is ourselves.
Mm,
I think we are so much in our own way. We don't know how to ask for the things that we need. And we don't know how to be the best versions of ourselves because the way women are brought up, they're not brought up to ask for anything. They're brought up to provide, they're brought up to nurture, they're brought up to cherish. It's all an external facing thing. And so a lot of the conversations I have that are really tragic is talking to really successful women that will turn over 100 million a year in a business. And you're saying, listen, you have a problem with your self-esteem. And they're going, what do you mean I have a problem with my self-esteem? And I'm like, you really have a problem with your self-esteem, and trying to get them to understand that they can be wildly successful at work, but really unsuccessful at believing in themselves or loving themselves or not self-sabotaging. The persona they have at work, the persona we as women create at work bypasses our people pleasing and all of those things, but the one we are at home does not.
mm,
So we are very bad at asking for our needs because we don't know what our needs are. We're very bad at looking after ourselves because we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to take ourselves seriously. And we also struggle with power. We struggle with being powerful. And what changed for me was that I had to take myself seriously. Otherwise, nobody else was going to. I was a young, pretty girl, brown girl with 3 small kids and no established ecosystem. So I was very disposable. And that was really difficult. And also I had no power. And I committed to being, today, I'm a very powerful woman in myself. And it's something I love about myself. I nurture that, I look after that, and I take myself very, very seriously for me. Now, I'm deeply childish and superficial and will I'll do all of those great things because they matter to me, but I won't compromise where it is about what it is that I want.
that's great. So you said, I think on your Instagram that you only work with famous people. Is that correct?
It's not that I only work with famous people. I started off my coaching career
Mm,
as working with famous people. I just work with women. I work
mm,
with I work with men as well, but I love working with women. And I work with successful women that are, trying to transition out of being a housewife into going back to work. I work with like I had one of my clients who came in and she was turning over 15 million in her business, and we started coaching, and it took us 7.5 years to take her to 52 million and doing an IPO,
oh, wow.
and so you can take somebody who's already doing well, and when you let them see the biggest version of themselves, they go stratospheric, and it's like taking off like a rocket. So it isn't only famous. It's just that the famous part just gets attention, you
Mm,
know. But honestly, I have the best job in the world on
that's
every
great.
level. Yeah.
Amazing. Something I saw on your Instagram as well about mentioning the divine feminine. I think sometimes when women are very successful, that can be kind of hard. I don't know if you feel that's way, or some women find it hard to embody the feminine strength. What would you say about that? What do you mean by divine feminine?
I agree completely. I think
Mm,
that when you are a woman, your power comes from the integral part of who you are. And when you're a man, it's your divine masculine. When you're a woman, it's your divine feminine. But in order for us to be successful, we've had to turn into men at work,
mm,
and unless we set up on our own. And so when I'm talking to women, I have this funny thing where I'll be like, can I see your underwear? And they'll be like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, up, up, up. And I'll check out, and if it's ratty and it's torn, it will tell me everything about you. It will tell me everything about you. No, no, really, I'm like, I'm vicious. I'm like, so shall we start working from the inside out? And they're like, bitch. And I'm like, no, really. If you're not willing to wear underwear that feels good just for you, I
yeah.
have a huge job to get you to take yourself seriously. Because, oh, but no one's going to see. You'll see it.
Mm. But how you
You
feel.
will.
Yeah.
And in this day and age of fast fashion, where you can get cheap, nice underwear, what
Yeah.
are you doing? So that it's such silly things where those are the things that you have to take into account. And teaching women that femininity is not what we was publicly represented. We represent femininity as being weak, as it being, emotional, gossipy, really negative. But actually, that's not true. The divine
Mm.
feminine is incredibly powerful. It's very encompassing, it's nurturing, it's a platform for growth. And you make babies from this platform, you give life from this platform. But if you're not willing to be feminine, and the other question I ask coaching clients is if they have sex with their partners,
Mm.
because the number of people that are in long-term relationships and they do not have sex is shocking. And it's because angry women will not have sex with you. If a woman is angry with you, she's not having sex with you. And so it's trying to, and it's very funny because like of the heterosexuals, about halfway through coaching you'll get husbands calling you going, can I pay off that coaching? I'll pay off the rest. And I'm like, yeah, sure, if you want to, because it's changing, it's forcing intimate conversations, so where you're the girl and he's a man, and you can let
Mm.
him be a man and you can stay the girl. It
Mm.
does not change my personality if I clean my house, and in the same way it does not change my personality if I change a light bulb. But to
Yeah.
be able to say to the man sitting there, that light bulb just doesn't work. And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. And I'm like, if only someone knew how to change that light bulb. It's just like tragic. I just don't know, and it's funny. And because obviously you know how to change the bloody light bulb. But why would you?
Yeah, yeah. I had to put this neon on my wall, and obviously I don't have screwdrivers, so I just find a male friend to come over with tools.
Yeah. And they love it. But don't you
Yeah.
find they just love it?
Oh yeah, it's like anything else you need. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Because men love to provide. So
Mm,
stop going into their space and doing the providing. Let them
mm,
provide. Right.
mm.
And men are not hairy women. They just aren't.
Yeah.
Let them be men and you be women. It's like speaking German to somebody who's Japanese and expecting them to understand and hating them when they don't understand it.
Mm. So
They don't.
where do you think feminism and divine feminine come together, or if at all? I mean, 'cause there's always a kind of a sticky topic, sometimes with let's say with chivalry and
I love chivalry.
I love chivalry too, but I think men are a
Oh,
bit confused about that. Should I open the door or not?
no, I mean, honestly, I think that if you're going to open the door for me or you're going to lift my bag for me, I'm going to love you a lot. I'm like,
Yeah.
feel free to do that. You're a wonderfully strong, hot, good-looking man. You go. But it
Mm,
doesn't change who I am on any level.
mm,
If you need, I think the place where we need to carry things to an extreme are the places where we don't feel safe in those things. So we have
mm,
to exaggerate them so that we have a reflection of them. Whereas if you're sitting heavily in your divine feminine, there is so much power inherent in that. I don't have to argue with you or fight with you in order to receive from that space.
mm,
And I think what we misunderstand, and I say this a lot to my clients, I say, what if everything is your responsibility? What if you cannot change anyone outside of you at all, and you could only change who you are? What would you then do? You would change who you are. I became who I am today by saying, only thing I have to change is me. I've tried
mm.
everything else. I can't do anything. It's me. I will change me, and then I will see what happens.
Well, you're doing so many things. What are your production, your productivity secrets, if you have the secrets. How do you divide your time with different tasks?
I work so hard, but I
Mm.
love everything that I do. My productivity secrets, I touch everything once.
Mm.
I'm going to touch it. I'm going to deal with it. I don't want to look at it again. um, because it's such a pain in the ass doing that. I automate everything. If we've done it as a team, if we've done something 3 times, the fourth step, it has to be automated. You have to send it in, say, this has to be automated because I've done it 3 times. It shouldn't have to be done again. Um, I delegate, delegate, delegate. So I have somebody who, in my private life, somebody who cooks and cleans and irons. I don't do any of that because I cannot work 12 hours a day and do that, you know. I always wanted to see the kids, so I prioritized. I teach this thing called the balance sheet technique, and I'm like, what if every day had a profit and loss account, and you had a balance sheet that was your week, the 7 days.
Mm.
Um, Start by putting all your priorities into your calendar. That's your calendar, these
Mm.
7 days, and then add the rest of your life in after that. So I would put in working out, I would put in knowing that I have a good meal coming, I would put in, when am I sleeping, and then because I wanted to spend time with the kids, my offices were always in my home. And which is funny because you had all these huge executives turn up and I'd be like, so your shoes go over there and you come in here with your socks, and I was like, and you don't have to come in, of course, but if you're coming in, this is how you're doing it. And so I worked from home so that I could run out and pick up the kids and be here and they would see me even though, I had to work. So yeah, I just adapted my life for my priorities only and for nothing else. And then, we got COVID and the world caught up with me, but I've been working from home for 20 years.
Yeah. I also had a pre-COVID life before COVID.
Yeah.
It was kind of
You're doing
easier.
exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, for 16 years. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you unwind? What do you do to enjoy yourself when you're not working?
I spent all day this talking, like because I'm coaching and so
Mm.
by the time I'm done, I'm like, please can I not talk to anyone else again? And I wanna sit somewhere and I go for a walk and I read a book. I'm a bookworm. I've recently got addicted to again baking. So I'll bake something because my brain calms down as I use my hands. Um, uh, Most of my good girlfriends don't live near me, which is really sad. And I
Mm.
hate the telephone. So, but otherwise, that would be a great way to kind of go for a drink and hang out. If anybody's in town that I love, I'm like, oh my God, yay. Because I'm not madly social.
Mm.
I spend a lot of time on my own.
Okay, it's good to be good on your own, though, isn't it? It's a really important
You're very
skill.
happy. Yeah. But sometimes it
Yeah.
goes too far and
Yeah,
you need a balance.
definitely, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, so a couple of questions I ask all of my guests. What is the book that changed your life?
I don't even know how to answer that. There are so many because I'm an inveterate bookworm.
Mhm.
I read 5 books in a week.
Oh, wow.
I'm like a proper full-on bookworm. So I remember Dale Carnegie. I remember reading because we lived in this street where there was no TV, there was nothing. There was one street and a farm in the middle of nowhere. Um, and so books were my only solace. And I remember being 13 or 14 and I read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence
Mm.
People. And I was like, oh, because I was this gawky kind of kid. And I was like, so you can like do that, you know, and being charming has become part of my persona
Mm.
because I would rather you were happy doing something with me than not.
Mm.
That's my definition of charming as opposed to manipulating.
Yeah,
And that was, I think, probably from when that I read that book.
amazing. What are you reading at the moment?
Everything. Yeah, I've got everything. I'm like,
Do you have Kindle or do you have real books? What do you like?
I no, no, I don't anymore. I have Kindle
Uh,
because I end up buying so many books. Like if you
mm.
look behind, yeah, I just
Yeah.
had rooms full of books. And I just did not. I'm trying to think. A really good book that I've been reading at the moment is this magic. It's the Physics of Miracles.
Oh, I love it. Who wrote that?
I promise you, it's the best book. Richard Bartlett. It's tapping into the field of consciousness potential.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
The other book that I read recently that was utterly brilliant was Unreasonable Hospitality
And
by
what's
Will Geedra. He set up 11 Madison Park Gardens. That
Oh,
was
wow.
amazing. Oh my God, such a good book. And then, I mean, I read a lot of romance fiction, which we don't need to go into. Just so you know, I do. Um, there was another one, Richard Bartlett. Then I find one man, and I read a woman. I
Okay.
read everything they've like Richard Bartlett. I just was like Noah St. John. I'll read anything he's ever written, and I just read them all. I love all the Abraham Hicks stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I like kind of quantum physics, and I like woo, and I like all of that stuff. Because the thing with woo is my clients need an explanation why I'm asking them to do something. So I use quantum physics as a way to explain the woo that I want
Yeah.
them to do
In a more grounded kind of
and
way.
why it works. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love, I'm a thwarted physicist somewhere deep in my heart. So I just love how that works. But, those are two amazing books.
Amazing. I'll write them down. I'm currently reading a book from a future guest called The Power of Enough. It's about wealth embodiment. It's just become a bestseller. She's called Elizabeth Husserl. I'm going to interview her in 3 weeks.
Oh,
Because
so
I
lucky.
actually interview authors, which is amazing. Would you ever think about writing your own book?
Yeah, I've written two.
Hmm.
And no, I've written three. I published one about 700 years ago. My mother, I think, is the only person that still has a copy. I wrote a biography and I read it and I was like, I'm never, this is too open. I'm not doing that. And then I wrote a book on the way that I think you should retrain your mind.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I've never published either of those. And so I have a couple of friends who are really pushing me quite hard.
Mm.
Um, and I'm like, yeah, you know, so yeah,
Mm.
I just, oh, oh my God, the book I wish I had written when I grow up is called Unbound. Have you read Unbound?
Oh, Unbound. Yeah, the dominatrix. So the un.
Kasia Urbaniak,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
life changing. Oh my God, that's the
It's
best book.
amazing. Yeah,
I'll get there eventually. I think I'll get there, but
yeah.
yeah,
You mean about the power of asking for things? What is it about that impressed you?
I just love the way she talks about power.
Yeah.
Because I think that as women we are too afraid to manage and
Mm,
manipulate, retain power. And we think of power as a masculine construct, and as I said, I'm very powerful. I like being powerful. I enjoy my power, and I'm keeping it. I'm
yeah.
not giving it up for anyone or anything. And the more women that stepped into their power and kept that power, the better we'd be as a world.
Yeah. Because I think also as women, we're not good at asking for the right prices. Like you mentioned earlier, when you were just £200 for what
Very
did that
bad.
mean? We're just so
I'm
bad at
very,
that.
yeah,
Mm,
I'm very expensive as a coach.
yeah.
I really like that about me. So
Did it take you time to get to the level that you are now in terms of confidence?
and it
Yeah.
was not anyone outside, it was me. So I started
Mm.
off at $100 an hour. And
So what is
then
the mindset shift that you made from going, let's say, from affordable to high ticket? What is that shift internally? What is
it's
it?
always internal. It's
Mm,
always you. It's not anyone else at all. It's always you. And it's always about what you're willing to receive and how you're willing to value yourself and see yourself. And I
mm,
would find that I knew what my limit was because I would say, okay, I'm now charging £250 an hour, right?
mm,
And then I'd be like, okay, so the next time a client came in, I would test and I would say it's £300 an hour. And they
mm.
would go, if they said yes, you knew you were fine at that level. If they said no, you had gone too high. Then I'd come back down and I'd do 260,
Mm.
and then somebody would say yes, and then I'd go with 260, and then the next time I would do 270 or 290. And that's how I did it. I literally tested my upper limits all the time to see what I was willing to accept.
Amazing. I've got this technique myself for my work. I do an ROE tax, which is return on energy. Like, can I be bothered with this? If it's something that I'm not really inspired by, I'll just make it really expensive. They'll probably, if
I
they say
agree.
no, I don't really care.
Like there are clients, right? And you're like, oh my God, I should
They're
have
going to
charged
drain
more.
me so much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have clients like that I just put the price up and up and up. And then I
Mm.
think, wow, okay.
Yeah. Do you have any messages for your younger self when you were in that situation of desperation? What would you say when you just arrived at your friend's house in one bedroom? What would you say to that version of
I
yourself?
don't know that I have. I think I'm the same person in those terms today than I was then. You
Mm,
can do this. You're well able and you can do it.
mm,
It wouldn't have made me relax anymore. Right. I mean,
mm.
sort of being poor and hungry is shitty. It's pretty
Yeah.
shitty. So I don't understand that concept. I know what you mean, but I'm like,
Uh,
what would I have said that would make it better? trust yourself. I was.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I was doing it anyway. And the other question I get asked a lot is, do you regret any choices? And I just don't. I just
Mm.
did what I did because that's the best I could do at the time, and that's what happened. So
Mm.
I don't know that I have any messages to pass to my younger self, except thank God you survived it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have a quote that you live by or
Yeah, I
affirmation?
always I I always forget it because I write it down more intelligently than I say it. But I think that if you can, I always say that if you can think it or dream it, you can make it happen. It's yours to make happen. Bottom
Amazing.
line. And so I do that. I create these huge things, um, and I do them because I'm like, oh, there's a thought, and then I don't think, oh well, there's a thought. I'm like, oh, therefore, if I thought it, I can clearly make it happen.
Yeah.
So okay, and then I go and I make it happen because I thought it, because it's
Mm.
mine.
Mm.
So that really saves me a lot of soul searching. I just get on with it.
So what's you had some big awards as well and recognitions for your work. Would you like to share what they are?
Well, you sound like such a twit, don't you, when you
No, not at all. Own it, own it.
Yeah, we've had a lot. We've been
Mm.
really blessed. I've won one Entrepreneur of the Year 5 times
Hmm.
over time. As a team, we won like 10 medals for the products and the service and the this and the this. I won an award at the UN 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, for that speech I didn't want to make. And we have a business called W Core, which is my new startup, which is where we're going into workplaces and making them supportive workplaces for women. So the infrastructure helps a woman to have her periods and whatever and still stay at work. And, we for that business, it's a year and 2 months old. We've won Disruptor of the Year, Advocate Equity Workplace of the Year, and it's just been really lovely. Global
Amazing.
Impact Award, Brand Impact, something. Anyway, so yeah.
Too many to remember. That's good.
No, it's good, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just like it embarrasses me a little bit, but yeah. So
No,
I'm
no,
grateful.
definitely. So it's obviously helping a lot of people, and also it's being a good role model for the next women who are rising as well to see that
Yeah,
it's
and I want to
possible.
create a
Mm.
platform for them, because we're
Mm.
on 5 continents. It's a global business because it was always
Mm.
set up to be that. Trying to get a bank account was a nightmare because they're like, what do you
Mm.
mean you're going to be in all the countries in the world? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. So, I'm like, I know how to get attention and to get eyes on something.
Mm.
So if there's a vision I have, I know how to get people to pay attention to that vision. So I'm as many women as I can get on board to give them a platform to help them go global. We had a woman who came on as an ambassador for W Core, and she's Scottish, and she came on in October and had been in a big job, sales job, and then had stayed at home with the kids. And we took her in 5, 6 months to pitching it to the Prime Minister of Scotland.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's just been, yeah, it's wonderful. I'm very blessed.
Definitely amazing. So where can people find you?
Anywhere like Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, which I love dearly. And just find me anywhere, DM me. I always read my stuff, and I always reply if I can.
Amazing. We'll be sharing your links. Well, Geeta, Sidhu-Robb, thank you for joining us today on the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. And if you write a book, I'll definitely be reading it. If you publish.
Thank you for having me on.
The book I'm reading now is Choose to Win. Transform your life one simple choice at a time. And this is by Tom Ziglar, who is the son of Zig Ziglar. I've heard that name a lot. I know it comes up in the world of personal transformation and coaching, although I don't know of his content firsthand. But this book actually kind of jumped out at me, and it was an interesting exercise to find a book that I wanted to read. I was in LAX airport and I was about to take a flight to Germany, 11-hour flight. So I haven't taken a flight that long for a long time. And I thought I needed a book to entertain me on the flight. And it was an interesting energy exercise because I do believe that things and places have certain energies. And I was also excited about being in a bookshop where all the books were in English, because that's very different from my experience in Spain, where I have to buy everything online. So I was assuming I would have much bigger choice. But it wasn't really like that, to be honest. I remember going to a bookshop and I just looked at all these books and I'm like, do I want to read you? Do I want to read you? No. It just wasn't really speaking to me. And I'm just, about books. It's a lot of investment of time to read a book. And I don't want to read a book just because someone says it's good or because it's got good reviews. I want a book that's really I'm going to feel drawn to. So I went to one bookshop and I looked at these different books and I was like, nah. And then I went to my gate actually to almost to board my plane. And then I saw another shop which had several things. It wasn't just books. And this book kind of really spoke to me. It was interesting just to see it next to other books. But this one was the one I just knew this is the book I'm going to buy. And I'm really enjoying it now. It's actually kind of similar to how I am creating my own coaching modality of the 8 pillars of self-love, which has the wheel of life, which is a tool that's often used in coaching. And in this book, there is a wheel of life that refers to 7 areas of life. And you're kind of going over each area and trying to improve each one week by week. So it's kind of the spokes on the wheel are physical, family, mental, financial, spiritual, career, and personal. So we can all score where we are now on this wheel in these different areas of life. And then each chapter goes into a different part. And over the weeks, if you do one a week, then you can try and adopt some new habits to actually increase the spoke on the wheel. I have a very similar technique with my own 8 pillars of self-love. And I always start with the lowest one so that over the course of 8 weeks, people can actually embody all of these improvements, and starting with the hardest ones, which will have the most transformation potentially. So, and also there's something that's interesting in this book. He said that what is the fastest way to success? And it says something like, replacing bad habits with good habits. So it's kind of good to do this assessment of your life currently, where you are with these areas of life, and also what are the bad habits that you have and how could you replace them with good habits. One habit that people could replace would be doom scrolling. That's something that people spend a lot of time doing. If you look at your screen time on your phone, it can be quite shocking to see how much time you spend on apps like Instagram or similar. For me, I don't feel that bad about my own doom scrolling. So I think it does depend on who you are following. Are you following content creators who are inspiring you? For example, opening Instagram and seeing all this inspiration can be a very different experience from following people who make you feel bad about yourself. So I think that's very good to do this audit on where you're getting your information from. That's a very good thing to do. And also let's say, people say that Netflix is a bad thing. I don't know so many people who don't want to pay for Netflix because they think they're going to really waste time. But I think just being intentional about these things is always a good thing to do. And sometimes it is good to just let your brain, be on, in a kind of numb mode sometimes, maybe not too much, but I think we can't be learning all the time. I think sometimes there is room for some kind of break. But still we have to be mindful of how the things that we consume, the non-food things, how they affect us in different ways. So I really like this idea of this book about making different choices. So we are choosing to win because we are the results. Our life is the result of our choices. And that's kind of something I alluded to earlier in my story about coming to Barcelona. It was a very wild and daring choice for me to make, but one I am incredibly grateful to myself, to my younger self. Thank you to my younger self for doing that. And sometimes it can also be frustrating thinking, oh my God, I did this to myself. I find that when I look at the mess of my house and I think, how did I do this single-handedly? Why do I need a professional cleaner? I mean, that's something I have joked with a friend of mine about. So do you live alone? Why do you need a cleaner? But yeah, I sometimes get annoyed with myself about the choices I make. So it's about thinking, what are the bad choices I'm making? The bad habits, and how can I make them better? And this book is very easy to read. I didn't manage to read it all on the plane. I just read a few pages and then actually fell asleep. But it's always good to have a good book on hand. You never know when you're going to need it. And this is definitely something that's going to help me with my own coaching program. So this is why I feel like I had to buy this book and not a different one, because I'd already had this idea about going through the different pillars of self-love, whereas this is a different actual content. It's different content from this Wheel of Life, which encompasses all areas of life, whereas mine is all about self-love. But the idea of just going a deep dive into one and then seeing what the current situation is and how you can improve upon it is definitely something that I've been thinking about myself. So to actually see this framework in a book like this is very validating for my own ideas that I have about creating my own coaching modalities. But yeah, it's a very good thing to think about anyway, about what are the bad habits you have currently, and how can you replace those bad habits with good habits. So there are many suggestions there, and something that I've been quite inspired about is getting a bit more active in terms of going to the gym, a bit more movement. That's something that's definitely been lacking from my life. And I think my biggest challenges are being orderly, in terms of my time, in terms of my messy desk now. The desk I am sitting at now is absolutely shocking. It's so messy. And that kind of makes me feel a little bit, I don't know, it kind of takes up bandwidth sometimes. And also, I feel like I don't move enough. I get very much in my head when I'm creating, and I forget to move. So I'm trying to work on that now, and trying to get more active. And I'm doing bachata, I'm doing salsa. I'm quite a lot now, and I'm walking a lot, and I'm getting back to the gym as much as possible. So yeah, onwards and upwards with those good habits. So if you want to do a bit of a life assessment and then try and improve in all the areas of life, I would definitely recommend this Choose to Win, because it's not just about work and performance. It's quite a holistic approach to, improving your life all over. So that is Choose to Win by Tom Ziglar. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I am a powerful woman. I embody divine feminine energy. I am worthy of respect, love, and success. I am the author of my own story. I lead as a strong, soft, and wise female. I rise with grace and fire. I am grateful for the wisdom that flows through me. I am a powerful woman. I embody divine feminine energy. I am a force of nature and grace. I am in control of my choices and my path. I honor myself as a creative, powerful woman. I choose alignment, joy, and peace. I am grateful for the wisdom that flows through me. I am a powerful woman. I embody divine feminine energy. I am strong, soft, wild, and wise. I am magnetic to opportunities aligned with my purpose. My voice is clear, confident, and heard. I grow through every cycle and season. I am grateful for the wisdom that flows through me. I am a powerful woman. I embody divine feminine energy. I am healing, growing, and glowing. I am deeply connected to my intuition. My energy uplifts and inspires. I celebrate myself as a whole, evolving woman. I am grateful for the wisdom that flows through me. I am a powerful woman. I embody divine feminine energy. I am breaking cycles and creating a legacy. I am a woman who empowers other women. I move through the world with intention. I create my path with love and clarity. I am grateful for the wisdom that flows through me. Are you looking to strengthen your pelvic floor in a fun and engaging way? Introducing PeriFit, the pelvic floor trainer that combines biofeedback with interactive video games. With PeriFit, you can track your progress and improve your pelvic health while playing video games with your vagina on your smartphone. It's easy, effective, and more importantly, it's fun. And for a limited time, get 25% off with the code Venus15 at checkout. That's perifit.co and use the code Venus15 for 25% off. The link is also in the show notes. Disclaimer: consult your healthcare provider before starting any new fitness program. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.